Madam Ogiri sold her 3 daughters to slave traders. She had raised them alone for 5 years since her husband died. 3 girls who should have been her comfort became her burden instead. Kala fought everyone in the village. She broke her neighbor's water pot, tore another woman's wrapper, and even pushed the chief's son into the mud. Nobody wanted Kala near their homes. Sammy slept with different men every week. She came home at dawn with her clothes dirty and her eyes empty. The village women whispered whenever Sammy passed. Tito did nothing at all. She lay on her mat from morning till night. She would not fetch water, would not cook, would not sweep. Her body grew soft while Madam Ogiri's hands cracked from doing all the work. Madam Ogiri tried everything. She talked to them gently about respect and hard work. She talked to them firmly about shame and consequences. She begged them to change. She punished them by refusing to cook their meals. She took them to the elders who warned them about their behavior. She took them to her mother who told them stories about good daughters. Nothing worked. Kala still fought. Sammy still wandered at night. Tito still lay useless on her mat. The other women in the village stopped greeting Madam Ogiri. Mothers pulled their sons away when Sammy walked by. People locked their doors when they saw Kala coming. Madam Ogiri could not farm properly because Tito refused to help and she had to do everything herself. One night, Madam Ogiri made her decision. She contacted the slave traders who passed through every season. Early that morning, she led her daughters down the forest path toward the meeting point. She had told them she had a pleasant surprise for them. The girls complained about waking early, but followed her anyway. When they reached the clearing, the traders were waiting. Madam Ogiri pointed at her daughters. The men moved quickly and grabbed them. Kala tried to fight, but they were stronger. Madam Ogiri took the money and walked back home alone. Her heart had already hardened from disappointment.
You insolent fool! Take this! You will learn!
Tito's hands bled as she scrubbed the large cooking pots under the hot sun. Her new mistress was a rich widow named Madam Didi who owned many servants. Tito had been sold to her 3 months ago. Her own mother, Madam Ogiri, had tricked her and her sisters. She told them they were going to buy clothes, but instead she handed them to slave traders. Tito and her sisters were separated immediately. She did not know where Kala and Sammy were taken. She only knew her mother sold her because she was too lazy at home. In her village, Tito used to sleep all day on her mat. She never fetched water or cooked or swept. Her mother did everything while Tito rested, but Madam Didi's household was different. Tito woke before the sun rose. She fetched water from the stream 5 times before breakfast. She ground pepper until her arms ached. She washed clothes until her fingers cracked. She cooked for 20 people. She swept 3 large compounds. She worked until darkness came. At first, Tito refused to work. She lay down and closed her eyes like she did at home. Madam Didi beat her with a cane until she stood up. When Tito hid behind the kitchen, Madam Didi found her and gave her no food for 2 days. When Tito walked slowly, Madam Didi added more tasks to her day. Tito learned that laziness brought only pain and hunger here. Her body changed over the months. Her soft flesh became muscle. Her weak arms grew strong from carrying heavy pots. Her slow feet learned to move quickly. She could now do in 1 hour what used to take her all day. But something else changed too. Tito's heart grew cold. She watched Madam Didi beat other servants and felt nothing. She saw a new girl arrive crying and did not comfort her. She learned to care only about finishing her work and avoiding punishment. At night, Tito lay on her thin mat in the servants' quarters. Her body hurt everywhere. She stared at the ceiling and wondered if she would spend the rest of her life as someone's property. She wondered if hard work had saved her or destroyed something inside her forever.
I'll wipe that smirk off your face!
Ha! With those wild swings?
You won't dodge this!
Kala's feasts were finally useful in a place where violence was entertainment. Her new owner was a man named Ozo, who made money from fighting matches. He bought Kala from the slave traders because he saw how she attacked them when they first captured her. Kala and her sisters had been sold by their own mother, Madam Ogiri. She tricked them and handed them to traders. Kala was separated from Sami and Tito immediately. She did not know where they were taken. She only knew her mother sold her because she fought too much in the village. Ozo trained Kala to fight other slaves for rich people who came to watch and place bets. At first, Kala fought wildly like she did at home, but Ozo's trainers taught her to use her anger with skill. They showed her how to punch properly and where to hit to win quickly. Kala learned fast. Her body was already strong from years of fighting in the village. Now she had purpose for her violence. The crowds cheered when Kala entered the ring. They shouted her name when she won. She defeated woman after woman. Her reputation grew. Ozo gave her better food when she won. He gave her a slightly larger space to sleep. He bragged about her to other owners. Kala felt powerful for the first time in her life. In the village, people hated her fighting. Here, they valued it. But after each match, Kala returned to her locked cell. She ate her food alone with chains on her ankles. She heard Ozo counting the money he made from her wins. She realized she was still a slave. Her fighting only made her owner richer, while she remained property. The cheering crowds did not see her as human. They saw her as entertainment, like a dancing monkey. One night after a particularly brutal match, Kala sat covered in bruises and blood. Her knuckles were swollen, her ribs ached. She had won again but gained nothing. She wondered if her violent nature was freedom or just another trap. She thought about her sisters and whether they were also discovering that their old problems followed them into slavery. Sammy thought her beauty would protect her until she realized nobody cared what she wanted anymore. Her new owner was a woman named Mama Ejiro who ran a guest house and drinking parlor. Men came there every night to drink palm wine and sleep with the women who worked there. Mama Ejiro bought Sami from the slave traders who got her from her own mother. Madame Ogiri had sold Sami and her two sisters into slavery. She tricked them and handed them over. Sami was separated from Kala and Tito that day. She did not know where they were or if they were still alive. She only knew her mother sold her because she slept with too many men in the village. Sami thought the guest house would be easy. In her village, she chose which men to be with. She thought her beauty gave her power over them, but at Mama Ejiro's place, she had no choice. The men paid Mama Ejiro, and Sami had to do what they wanted. When she refused the first time, Mama Ejiro beat her with a stick. When she cried, the men laughed at her. She learned quickly that her body was no longer hers. The men were rough and careless. They did not sweet-talk her or try to impress her like the village men did. They used her and left. Some were cruel, some were drunk and violent. Sami served them all because she had no power to refuse. She finally understood the difference between choosing and being forced. What she did in the village was her decision. What happened here was slavery. At night, Sami lay on her mat and cried quietly. She missed her village terribly. She missed her home and her mother's compound. She even missed her difficult sisters. She wondered where Kala and Tito were. She wondered if they were suffering like her, or if they found kinder owners. She thought about her mother and felt both anger and longing. She regretted sleeping with all those men, but she hated that her punishment was this. She closed her eyes and dreamed of running away, but she had no. Madame Ogiri used the money she got from selling her 3 daughters to buy land, and she thought that was the end of her troubles. The land was good. It was wide and flat and close to the stream. She farmed it alone every morning and harvested enough to eat and sell. Her compound was clean and quiet. Nobody fought in it. Nobody came home at strange hours. Nobody lay on a mat, doing nothing, while she worked herself to death. For the first few weeks, Madame Ogiri slept deeply every night and woke up feeling rested for the first time in years. But the village changed toward her. People had talked. Everyone knew what she had done to Kala, Sami, and Tito. Women who used to greet her looked away when she passed. The men at the market refused to bargain with her. Her closest neighbor stopped sending her food during festivals. Nobody visited her compound. Nobody asked after her health. She became a ghost in her own village while still being alive. Then the dream started. Kala appeared first. She was bleeding and fighting someone much bigger than her. Tito appeared next. She was on her knees scrubbing the floor and crying without sound. Sami came last. she was sitting in a dark room staring at nothing. Madame Ogiri woke up from these dreams sweating and breathing hard. She would sit in the darkness of her compound and listen to the silence that used to feel like peace, but now felt like punishment. She fell sick during the rainy season. Her body ached and her chest felt heavy. She lay on her mat for 3 days with nobody to bring her water or check her temperature. She dragged herself to the stream alone and dragged herself back. She cooked her own food with shaking hands. She realized this was exactly what she had complained about with Tito. Now there was nobody at all. One evening, she sat outside her compound watching the sun go down. She thought about her daughters and wondered if they were still alive. She wondered if they thought about her. She wondered if she had made the worst decision of her life or the only decision she had left. Carla ran into the darkness with blood on her hands and the sound of angry men behind her. The escape happened during her biggest fight. The crowd was larger than usual. Rich men had bet heavy money on Carla to win. She was fighting a woman twice her size when someone in the crowd accused another man of cheating. The argument turned into a brawl. Men pushed and shoved and threw punches at each other. The guards left their posts to control the crowd. Carla saw her chance. She knocked out her opponent with one final punch, then turned and ran. She grabbed a guard's knife on her way and disappeared into the night before anyone noticed. Ozo's men came after her immediately. She heard them shouting her name and crashing through the bushes behind her. Carla ran faster than she had ever run in her life. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs shook. She ran until the voices faded behind her. Then she kept running. She hid in the forest for days. She had no food except wild fruits she recognized from her childhood. She had no water except from streams. She moved only at night, when it was harder for them to track her. During the day, she climbed trees and stayed perfectly still. She heard search parties pass beneath her several times. Her body ached from sleeping on branches and running on an empty stomach. Carla did not know which direction led home. She had been brought here in chains months ago and never saw the path clearly. Every tree looked the same. Every stream could lead anywhere. She was free but lost. Her fighting skills kept her alive against wild animals, but they could not tell her which way to go. On the 5th day, she found a road. It was wide and well used. She crouched in the bushes and stared at it. The road could lead to safety or back to Ozo. She heard voices coming from the left side. Travelers, or hunters, or slave catchers. She gripped her stolen knife and tried to decide whether to follow the road or stay hidden in the forest forever. Kala stood at the edge of her village after 2 years and barely recognized the place that once knew her as a troublemaker. Madame Ogiri had stopped being miserable months after selling her daughters. She decided she could not change what happened, so she would not waste time regretting it. She took the remaining money from the sale and invested it in trading palm oil and cloth. She was smart with her money. She bought goods when they were cheap and sold them when prices rose. Before long, her business grew larger than anything her husband had built when he was alive. Her compound expanded. She hired workers to farm her land. She wore better wrappers and ate better food. The village forgot quickly, like villages always do. People became tired of whispering about her. New scandals emerged and pushed her story aside. Women began greeting her again at the market. Men came to her compound to discuss business. Nobody mentioned her daughters anymore. Madame Ogiri thought about Carla, Sammy, and Tito sometimes at night. She wondered where they were and if they were suffering. But she pushed those thoughts away each morning and focused on her thriving businesses. She convinced herself she had done what was necessary. Then one afternoon, Carla appeared at the compound gate. She was thin and covered in scars. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her eyes looked older than her age. Madame Ogiri was sitting outside counting money when she looked up and saw her daughter. Her hands froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Madame Ogiri stood slowly and spread her arms wide to embrace her daughter. Carla walked toward her steadily, but instead of falling into her mother's arms, Carla's hands went straight to her mother's throat. She squeezed hard with the strength she had gained from months of fighting. Madame Ogiri gasped and clawed at Carla's hands. The workers rushed over and pulled Carla off. 3 men held her back, while Madame Ogiri coughed and touched her bruised neck. Kala collapsed to her knees and cried like a child. She told her mother that yes, she and her sisters were terrible children, they caused her pain and shame, but selling them to slave traders was too far. Madame Ogiri stood silent with no defense to offer. After some days, Kala announced she would search for her sisters. Madame Ogiri warned her that Ozo's men might still be looking for her. Kala said she had no choice. Madame Ogiri gave her money for the journey and watched her daughter leave again. Kala searched for her sisters the way hunters track animals, moving carefully through territories where slaves were kept. She wore a dark cloak that covered her face and hid the scars on her arms. She moved from town to town, asking careful questions about slave markets and wealthy households that owned many workers. She pretended to be looking for work herself. She listened to gossip at markets and drinking parlors. Ozo's men were probably still searching for her, so she never stayed in one place too long. Months passed with no leads. She slept in bushes and ate whatever she could find or buy. She refused to give up. Finally, a traveling merchant told her about Madame Didi, who owned many house slaves in a town 3 days away. Kala traveled there immediately. She found the compound and watched from a distance until she saw Tito carrying water. Tito's body was stronger now. Her face looked hard and empty. Kala barely recognized her lazy sister. Kala approached Madame Didi and said she wanted to buy Tito. Madame Didi laughed and refused. Tito was her best worker now. She was worth more than Kala could afford. Kala begged and bargained for hours. She offered all the money her mother had given her plus her own labor for 6 months. Mama and Didi finally agreed. When Tito realized she was free, she embraced Kala but felt like a stranger in her arms. They traveled together to find Sammy. When they reached Madame Ejiro's guest house, the woman told them Sammy had died 4 months ago. She caught diseases from the men, and her body grew weaker until she could not get up anymore. Kala and Tito fell to the ground and cried until their voices were gone. They never got to tell Sammy they came looking for her. They returned home to find Madame Ogiri waiting at her gate. She rushed toward them with tears, but Tito stepped back and refused her embrace. Tito told her mother she would never forgive her. Yes, they were horrible children, but Madame Ogiri was not a perfect mother either. She was impatient and quick to anger. Using the skills they learned in slavery, Kala and Tito built their own small compound at the edge of the village. They farmed and traded and lived independently. Madame Ogiri remained in her big compound with all her wealth. She watched her daughters from a distance, but they never came to visit. She had everything she worked for except a family that has been destroyed. Do you think Madame Ogiri went too far by selling her children to slave traders, or did they deserve what happened to them?